Okay, people. So there had been a lot of talk about Triangle of Sadness, right? And he'd been winning all manner of awards, like tore up Cannes. And man, when I saw Woody Harrelson was in it, I was like, ooh, this could be interesting. But I did wonder about the subtitle situation, right? Because foreign director, all of that jazz. Just hit Now TV. So I decided to, no, Amazon. So I decided to take a look, right? It is the first English language feature from Ruben Ostlund. He wrote and directed it. It is produced by um, Eric Hermendorf, Philippe Boba. Gosh, there are so many people on this. This is kind of crazy. It's executive produced by Jamal Zanul Zadeh, Dan Walsh, Bradley Thomas, Daniel Steinman, Jim Stark, Regina Solazanu, Andreas Rald, Peter Pousson, Michael Merkit, Konstantinos Konstantikakis, uh, Gigoros Karnavasa, Mika Green, Ross Garnett, Ryan Friedkin, Dan Friedkin, Lizzie Fankel, Mikel Felinios, Alexandro Del Vigna, Anna Cronin, and Brina Elisabetta Blas. Okay. Friedrich Wenzel, cinematography. Michaela C. Carlson and Ruben Ostlund edited the piece. Pauline Hanson was behind the casting. Josephine Asberg, production design. Art direction is Daphne Kutra. Uh, Costume design is Sophie Krugengard. And our cast. Well, man, you've got Carl, played by Harris Dickinson. Yaya is played by Chalby Dean. We got Paula, played by Vicky Berlin. Abigail, played by Dolly De Leon. Alicia, played by Alicia Erickson. Woody Harrelson is the captain. Dimitri is played by Zolta Burik. Vera is played by Sonny Mills. Ludmilla, Carolina Ginin. Therese Iris Burben. Clementine is played by Amanda Waller. Winston, Oliver Ford Davis. Yuli, Ralph Shinka. Jano is played by Henrik Dawson. Darius, Arvin Kananinen. Um, Stefan Golduk is the yacht chief. Nelson is played by Jean-Christophe Folly. Um, we have got Lewis played by Phobius Forward. Uh, yeah, I think they're our main group, right? There's a lot of models and passengers and all of that kind of thing. Uh, but the gist of the film is this. Ba- 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 ba. Um, it's a look at social hierarchy as it's turned upside down, revealing the tawdry relationship between power and beauty. Celebrity model couple Carl and Yaya are invited on a luxury cruise for the uber rich, helmed by an unhinged boat captain. What first appeared Instagrammable ends catastrophically, leaving the survivors stranded on a desert island and fighting for survival, which is partly it, but that's more the second act, right? Because the film is split into three. Our first act is Carl and Yaya, right? Which looks at this couple, right? We because at first you're not quite sure where it's going because we're at a model shoot and there's loads of guys in a room and you've got a camera crew and an interviewer and he's walking around talking to all the models. And at the very end, he comes to Carl and he talks to Carl. And then he gets them to kind of model, right? And that was interesting because it showed a very something that I don't think you always pay attention to, but it was just like for expensive items, people look all moody, like scowling and all of that. But for cheaper items, they're always like, "Hey," and smiling and shit in the adverts. And when you think about it, that is kind of true, right? That is fucking true. So we meet Carl, and then we see him with Yaya, right? They're on a date, and we get into this whole thing around, you know, what people put into a relationship, why you're there, right? And it's interesting, right? Because I think some of the things that are said are very true, but the intentions behind what is being said, which then is admitted to be lies, essentially. So it's this interesting kind of dynamic, and you're looking at this, right? And at the time, you see the power dynamic there, right? So we then go to act two, which is the yacht. And you've got all these people on a yacht. And then we see Carl and Yaya, which is interesting because we're not quite sure they're going to get to that point, right? But again, it's looking at this power dynamic, you know, as you have all of these rich people on this yacht. Oh man, you can tell these motherfuckers be rich, you know, and just the way they're acting is insane. Yeah, the way they're talking to the staff, right? And then the way they get, like, it's ordering people around and being short and, rude. But then it's also, oh, we're very similar, you and me. Oh, yes, you should do this, sit with me, talk to me, and be like, oh, you won't lose your job. And it's just like, yo, what the fuck is happening? You know what I mean? It's just that kind of situation where people are oblivious, right? Thinking that everything is, the same for everyone because you live in this walled garden. So you see that, but also you see the difference in the crew, right? Because we see the above deck crew, and we see how there's a big teams talk there, and they're talking about. At first, it's all a bit like, what this is what we have to do, and blah blah blah. But then it completely changes when they're talking about bonuses and money and just all of this, and they're partying and jumping around. And then we see the below deck crew, and I mean the cleaners, right? The people that are just there to clean the rooms, the toilets, and just all of that stuff. The backbone of it all, because without them, nothing's happening. You feel me? But when you look at the two crews, there is a distinct difference, right? Below deck crews full of foreigners. Full of foreigners. You feel me? No diversity in those above deck crews, right? So we're seeing these two different things, and everything that's going down, we get talk of communism, right? Capitalism, just all of these things, and people acting like, you know, they are so, oh man, we don't believe in capitalism, it's bad, and blah blah blah, as they're on this expensive cruise, right? It's delusion and just all of these things. And then the third act is the island, which yeah, the situation happens, right? And that then throws up another completely different situation. And you know what? This film is, I really enjoy, because we do not just have fantastic performances. Jesus Christ. We do not just have fantastic performances, but it is a smart, witty script. You know what I mean? Which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun just looking at these juxtaposed situations, right? The hypocrisy of the things that are being said, and people being oblivious to all of that. It's so crazy and funny, and just like, what is happening here? This is crazy, right? It was subtitled, right? That is, so I'm very glad I did not go watch this in the cinema, because yeah, it was subtitled. Luckily though, they were large subtitles, so they weren't on a solid background all the time, but they were large, so there wasn't too much rewinding and all of that jazz. But yeah, I think what this does very well is show you these people in these different environments, right? So I think when you first see some people, you might think one thing. You'd be like, oh, yeah, that person, they seem nice, blah, blah, blah. See them in another environment, and you see the true colors coming out, and it's just like, oh, right. You are a shit, right? You are a gutless, yeah. And you wonder, was it being in, a certain role, a certain job, an environment that changed that person, or is that just their actual nature? Because it's easy to be righteous when you have nothing. You know what I mean? It's just like, are you going to be that way with when you have everything? And we see it a lot in communism. You know what I mean? People talk about it, but the communist model never works because humans are involved, right? And you always have people that want power, right? That want more, that want all the money. And that's where things fall down. And that's what we see here. How people who, started at the bottom And once they climb up, then it all changes. And now it's like, I'm holding this shit over you. And you can understand in some situations, right? Because they were treated badly, right? And even on the island at the beginning, you can see how people want those same roles to be in place, right? It's like, well, we're here, but you still do everything I say, right? I still control you. You still shouldn't ever be in this situation, even though you might be doing all the work, right? So we see all of that, which is ooh, interesting. But then you also just have the people, right? People are just like, I'm rich. I don't give a fuck about anyone. There's this old couple. Oh, the geriatrics of doom. You know what I mean? And that is like the bit towards the end with them. That's a little bit, but it was amusing, just not very believable. But just the way they're talking about stuff, right? The terms they're using, and you're just like, yo. And the thing is, it's a film, right? It's a film. It's make believe. It's fiction. But there are people like that. You probably come across some people like that, right? That's why this works so well. 'Cause we've met these people, right? You've seen these people. You may have even heard these kind of interactions, these conversations, and it's all put together really well. I think, like, we see people using the toilet, right? Which is something you don't really necessarily see in films and TV. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm into golden showers and scat, right? But it's these human functions that just aren't there in films. Like people never, and you're just like, I mean, we've seen them have a big meal. We've seen them get drunk. No one is, huh? And if you see someone on the toilet, it's all done in a certain way. Everyone still looks all very smart, and you know what I mean? This one, we are seeing people fucked up, which I think helps to just show that situation, right? Where you can be as rich as you think, but you still do the same things as everyone else, right? You still throw up, you still shit yourself, you still piss yourself. All of those things we get to, and it's just like, I mean, it's not flattering. It's real not flattering. Which props to the actors and props to how they did it. Right? One thing I thought was really good as well. There's a bit where there's this woman and she's throwing up, and the ship's all moving about, and she's falling about, and you actually see like red marks on her back as she bumps into the wall, which just that minute little detail that I was just like, nice, right? Because you don't see that necessarily all the time. So that's one thing they did very well. It's just the detail, right? There's a bit when a girl's passed out and her dress has kind of fallen open a little bit. And even in the worst of situations, you got this guy and he's just looking, right? You just see him looking, and it's just like, dude, like, what? Just think about your situation, and this is what you are, which is natural, right? Which is, I think that was one of the great things of 28 Days Later. Was that the first film? When they get to the army base and the soldiers were like, oh, women. And you're just like, of course they would act like that, right? But other type of films, and they're showing people and the world's falling apart and everyone's being nice and respect, and you're just like, no, no. We resort to being fucking Vikings and barbarians again. So it's good when these things are kind of depicted and the reality is shown to us. You know what I mean? And I think that's what this does very well. It's look, as I said, it's satirical. It's, verbose, right? It is a little over the top in places when but does a good job. And the end is very interesting, right? Because it's open to interpretation, I would say, right? Wondering what will happen. What are the choices people will make? Because you understand everything that's going through these characters' head, right? The thought of losing this current hierarchy, right? The offer of help, you could see that was like big. Then it kind of got fucked up with the things what was said next, right? So it's just like, what would they do, right? Where will they go from this point? And it was super interesting, super thoughtful. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I was thinking though, the woman in a wheelchair, she ain't making it. No, like, come on now. Is anyone really looking to take care of that? No, no, they're not. You know what I mean? That's the first person that's getting murked for food. You feel me? Well, yeah, no, it was yeah, interesting. Interesting for sure. Very glad I've seen it. I can definitely see why everyone was talking about it. And interesting as well, because I've never heard like this area, the eyes to the nose, referred to as the triangle of sadness. Hmm, never. But I suppose with the eyes and the eyebrows and the frown, and you can invoke a lot with that. But yeah, that was very interesting. You know what I mean? If you like your satirical films, like, oh, there was this one with Steve Coogan. I think it was called Greed, right? Mocking the retail industry. You've got like things like The Trip, you've got a cock and ball story. I mean, there's a load, like Thank You for Smoking. There's a load of these things. Can't think of them all, but if that's your bag, right, then Triangle of Sadness will work very well for you. If you just like really good, thought provoking films, then again, Triangle of Sadness will work very, very well for you, people. So, yeah, it's out now all over the shop. So, yeah, people, enjoy it. Enjoy it.